Get that started. Don't want to forget that.
Yeah, sure. And then let me see. I'm just watching my connection here. All right, making sure that I'm going to connect everything.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Hey, how's it going, Adam?
Ready.
Oh, and it is 4, so I'm going to go ahead and connect now. So I'd say probably wait like 10 seconds at least.
Okay.
Oh.
Welcome, everybody, to the working that is Chrononaut Chronicles. I've got 3 of the other Prime Krononauts here with me this evening. We'll hear from them in just a moment. Looking at the almanac, I see that today is actually the Feast of St. George, which we will get into a little bit later. And then on Tuesday, there is a conjunction between the Mars and the Moon, between Mars and the Moon. And other than that, pretty uneventful week from as far as the almanac's concerned. It does say that the almanac founder, Robert B. Thomas, was born today, actually, in 1766. And also Spain declared war on the U.S. today in 1898. So those are 2 fun facts. But all that aside, this show is sponsored by Mystical Wares, and we do have Derek with us here this evening. I know that he has to cut out a little bit earlier than normal, so we will start with Derek and the gratitudes. Derek, thanks for being here. And what's going on? What are you grateful for?
Yeah, I appreciate that, Bill, and all the other chrononauts. Yeah, I'm happy to be here. It's always interesting, all the different ways we go. And actually, I want to mention that this time for the gratitudes is I'm grateful for all of you and all the various perspectives that each of you and us bring to the podcast. Because I jot notes down all podcasts long on various things I hear. On the last show was some AI stuff that Adam was getting into, and we were talking about that. So I jotted notes down and went from there. So I picked up the breadcrumbs, made a sandwich, and it was a pretty cool sandwich. I'm just talking about it in general. Yeah. So it's a lot of fun doing that. And then I'm going to continue to do that. So that's what I'm kind of talking to the listeners as well, is that's kind of what we all do here. It kind of at times seems like we're all over the place, but yes and no. There are a lot of synchronicities or breadcrumbs in there. And so I am grateful for that. And the fact that sometimes I pay enough attention to pick up on them. Not all of them all the time, but yeah. So I appreciate that, and all of you. So thank you.
Well, thank you for being here. And to spin off of that gratitude, thank you all for humoring me and being here on Monday nights. This is our 5th episode now, so this is exciting that we're starting to get the ball rolling and pick up steam a little bit. So, but my gratitude actually has to do with the bed I talked about last week. I built Ellie and I assembled a buckwheat hull mattress. So I've spent a week sleeping on it at this point, and I can happily report back that it is helping with the quality of my sleep, and it is much more supportive than all the other mattresses I've tried. Regular box springs, the Tempur-Pedic, as well as the Purple mattress brand. So I'm happy that I'm sleeping better. But we do have 2 of the other Prime Krononauts here with us, Adam and Ben. What is going on, fellas? I don't know who wants to speak first or share gratitude. I know that I was talking to Derek before we started recording about this huge geomagnetic storm that we just had yesterday, right? So, Adam, I'm kind of curious to hear.
Yeah, yesterday, spooling into today. So, yeah, it's just like anything else. Earth-directed CME, and we took a little hit there. So yeah, it happens. As we go further and further into a magnetic excursion and our magnetic field gets weaker, we'll just continue to feel these effects even more.
Well, I'm glad you're here because I know that can affect you as far as when you have migraines. Is that something that has been getting better? Because I know that you've had some work done recently. I don't know if you want to get into that about.
Yeah, I did have some dental work that has definitely helped. As for this, they sometimes do, sometimes don't. I seem to have more of a correlation to coronal holes when they come in and cross over my region. But yeah, this one here, knock on wood, really hasn't affected me. So that's good. But everybody should be aware of it anyways, because just across the board, especially when you have a strong geomagnetic storm like this, you're having effects to all causes of health. So cardiac, mental health, metabolism, all these things are directly impacted by the electrical interference around us. So just keep an eye out, especially if you're a high risk person or you got some of those issues. Just be a little more alert, because once you know about something, you can protect yourself against it.
Yeah, it's speaking of knowing, I got notifications on my phone yesterday when this solar event happened or whatever, and I was exchanging text messages with Adam earlier about apps to track space weather, and just so happens that like one of the major events happened, then I got to use the app firsthand and kind of experience notifications. Not that, it's super exciting or anything, but I guess it was kind of a big storm, right? Like one of the uh,
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we've had a big one like this since I want to say it was like 2003, 2007. It was the Halloween storms or solar storms that happened. But yeah, I mean, look, the Earth has gone through stuff like this before. We've had more of a magnetic field, Carrington events, and then, back before you'd have any way of even being able to diagnose it. Plus, just start looking at other stars. As we look at other stars, we're seeing upticks in celestial events on other planets. So yeah, I would just expect, probably here within the next couple of decades, it's just going to, escalate continuously. Obviously within the cycles, because there's cycles within cycles. Right now we're at the bottom part of, like, I think it's like an 8 or 9 month solar cycle that goes on in the storms within the entire yearly cycle.
yeah, I didn't have the thought to go out and check for auras last night, but apparently that you could see some as far
Oh
as
yeah, by you, of course,
Canada.
Bill. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the aura maps were coming like midway through the country.
Yeah. Ben, were you outside at all? Did you see any cool lights in the sky? Also, Ben's here with us. I don't know if yeah,
Yeah, I was outside. There I'm trying to find the right words to describe what I've been observing for a few months now. And I track the space weather pretty uh I shouldn't say astutely, but I do keep an eye on it. And the way some of the major stars, Sirius in particular, the way their light has been uh perceivable has changed quite a bit in the last few months, um, as far as color and pattern of the blinking and sparkling that the stars do. So but yeah, there's a lot of flash bulbs and just overall a lot of activity, a lot of heat lightning, stuff like that.
yeah. The I guess there was some green like balls of aura over in Germany that they haven't seen ever. So that was newly reported, and it was against like a purple sky, so
Mm,
it looked really cool. But
yeah, and the auroras came down as far south as I am a few weeks ago, but there was a lot of light pollution around where I was. But I've been spending a lot of time, especially with this new coming off of this new moon, out at night, and there's a lot going on up there if you can get out into the dark.
so I remember not seeing Sirius not too long ago. It was like maybe last year even, so maybe it was a while ago, but it was like strobing different colors. It was changing like green and red and blue. It
Yeah.
wasn't just like a solid starlight color. What is that
Mhm.
more of that's happening? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and actually Janine and I have been talking about that a lot recently. And yeah, there's a few different rabbit holes you can go down on with star family and stuff like that as to what's going on there. But it has been exceedingly bright the past couple of, that's lunar cycles. And when that new moon comes out, you can really see the color change.
Yeah, it's been I don't know, it's like the star when you see it strobe like that is trying to send you a message of some sort, like like an angel, which is something that we'll get into later on in the second segment, the new business segment. Was there anything in particular, Ben or Adam, that you were grateful for since our last meeting that you wanted to share?
Yeah, just communities and groups of people in general. I've managed to find myself into a really cool group that's doing a game jam session, which is developing a video game over a very short period of time. So we're doing it over like a total of like 3 weeks and maybe 2 weeks. I don't know. I came in late on the project. So yeah, I've been working on just gathering all these audio files for an accessibility game that can be used by blind people. So yeah, it's fun. I'm not getting paid. I'm not doing anything like that, but yeah, it is really cool to build things. And when you're building things, it makes it easier to build other things around you. So, yeah, I'm excited. And I love that community and people out there and just wanting to get together to do things where, like, the goal is just making something, not to make it to get something.
So this isn't like a competition where there's other teams out there.
Yeah, it is kind of like a competition. Everybody submits their stuff, but it's not like super serious.
And I love how you said it's more geared towards the creation of the thing. It's the action itself that makes you happy, right? It's
Yeah,
not
yeah. Well, and the idea that where is the muse? If you want the muse to come out, you need to sit down and do the work. Clear the space, sit down, put in the intention, and just do. And so, yeah, it's always great to have things like that that get you doing. Um, yeah, because I mean, the way of the world is really once you start doing something, the world kind of opens itself up as long, that what is it like fortune favors the brave type of thing, it.
yeah.
So yeah, yeah, I don't know. It's just cool that there's, like-minded people to be able to do things like that. So, um, yeah, no, I love it. I love it. I'm all in on this technology of pulling us together in a world where we live in cities. So,
Yeah, that is cool because it ties into third segment this week, which is all about doing your best, right? Which is the fourth agreement in Don Miguel Ruiz's four agreements. Last week we covered the last chapter where he talks about. Actually, I have my notes right here. But so I thought this week we would just talk about doing your best and kind of make it. I know it's a good message to send out, right? But last week we talked about 3 ways to kill a parasite, which are facing every fear one-on-one, and we can stop feeding the parasite. And then we talked about the initiation of the dead. And then he also gave us 3 masteries that lead people to be a Toltec, and it's the mastery of awareness, the mastery of transformation, and the mastery of intent and love. And yeah, so this is the fourth agreement actually is kind of, I don't want to say more important than the other 3, but it does make the other 3 work. But we'll get into that um, in a little bit. Ben, did you have anything in particular? Did you? I don't know if you shared or not. I'm losing track.
Um, I didn't share yet. But you know, when you really get into the gratitude practice, there's so many things just throughout the day. I find myself kind of whispering thank you for. And the past few days have definitely um been days like, where I can see a lot every day. So I'm grateful for that, to be honest.
I noticed I caught myself the other day. Something went wrong, and I was gonna say, "God damn it!" Right, but then I changed it to "God bless it."
Nice.
Yeah. So we're blessing things instead of damning things. But I did bring up angels, and this will move us into our second segment of the show, new business. I finished a book recently about Saint Joseph and his world, and the book is called Saint Joseph and His World by Mike Aquilina. And I thought I just wanted to learn a little bit more about this dude because he has been kind of a constant motif growing up. I was born in St. Joseph County. I went to St. Joe High School. The Freemasonic Lodge I joined was named after St. Joseph Lodge number 45. So I just bought this small little book wanting to learn more about St. Joseph. And I knew that it was kind of an obscure topic going into it because there's not a lot of information on the guy. Like in the Bible, he never speaks. He's never spoken to except by angels through dreams on 4 different occasions. So um, the only time that he's actually spoken to that's recorded in the Gospels, as far as outside of apocryphal texts, is when Jesus is found in the temple after they lose him, returning from the pilgrimage from Jerusalem. They go back and they find him sitting with the teachers, and he addresses his mom, actually Mary. He addresses Mary and Joseph together in tandem. So that's the only time that he's spoken to by a human, right? But angels are just messengers, right? And I did I did have a little excerpt from, see if I can find it. Oh yeah. Um, he goes into, so Michael, the author, goes into the different ranks of angels, which I thought was pretty interesting. Ben and I have had some conversations about angels, and I don't know if Ben, do you have any thoughts that come off the top of your head? We were I know we've discussed the cherubim and the seraphim before, which are the top 2 tiers of angels, but according to this book, which is something that it's written by a Catholic, so it's got a Catholic slant to it. But apparently, I didn't know this. Really, if I did, I forgot that Michael is the only one to have the title of archangel given to him. Is that
That's interesting. Um, working with those energies, on that, the way I look at it is angelic frequency. And it does vary by class of angel, I guess. I was raised Lutheran, but I didn't take it very seriously. And it's been interesting getting back into that side of things when you do the research, because I've done a fair amount of work with Michael, and it's a spectacular energy to work with. But it is, I look at it as along the same lines as the rest of the spirit work that I've done, and it's just another frequency that you have access to. And I don't know if the information or messaging is exclusive. I think you can get it through other means if you have some aversion to that, Christian, mostly Catholic road that you kind of have to go down. But it is not at all what I had imagined in the beginning. And I got there through doing the work with the Holy Guardian Angel, somewhat a Golden Dawn kind of route. And it really did open up a lot of new perspectives, a new way to look at it. A lot more compassion was flowing in, and I find it beneficial to acknowledge and work with that energy if it's around, for sure.
and Derek and I have had a conversation about Michael before, and I don't know if Derek's with us. I think he might be. Oh, wait, he's doing something in the store. But yeah, the angels are something that I've recently reintroduced or took another look at, respected, right? And that was a prompting, actually, that when Ben was here to come and visit Ellie and I, we both, there was this kind of message that came along to say to relook back at our, where we came from, the traditions that we grew up with, Lutheran or Catholic or Christian in general, right? And take a second look at those and draw out, what you can. Because for me, I had kind of personally abandoned that faith for a long time. Like it was agnostic, so just, for lack of a better term. But there's a lot of magical stuff in Christianity we pulled out, and in Judaism, because Saint Joseph was a Jew, right? So this tradition of angels goes back, so long, right?
Well, and it was fascinating to me once I got into researching more and working with the ceremonial magic, some of the more Western, Victorian era tradition stuff. How much magic there was in church growing up, looking back and seeing some of the same rites and rituals performed in front of me as a kid in the choir, right? And it did change my perspective on all of it. Working with the Yeshua energy is amazing. I get why people, who get filled with spirit in that Christian tradition, stick with it, because it's a great energy to work with, but even all the angels, like I said, they come with their own frequency and their own kind of, I don't know if agenda is the right word, but a way of doing things for sure. And it's fascinating to see that perspective shift and open up a deeper view into reality. These things are, like all souls, they're everlasting and have been around for eons. They've seen a lot.
Yeah, and I think it's something that has gotten lost amongst at least I don't want to speak for all Catholics. I haven't been to church in forever, but it's not really emphasized as much as it could be. And it is kind of sad because like they like for see Saint Michael and see Saint George and Saint Michael. This is Saint George's feast day today, right? And I think that there's everything's a copy of a copy of a copy, right? And even the myth of Saint George is based off of the story it's taken is actually attributed to Saint Theodore. Something I'll bring it up here on my phone, but Theodore.
I got to pour a little out for St. George, is what you're saying tonight.
Well, yes, Saint George is, he's often depicted slaying a dragon or a snake, right? And that legend actually comes from Theodore Tyron, Tiron, and the story is that there was these villagers that were being, I don't know, ruled or harassed, I guess, by a dragon, and they ran out of stuff to pay him as tribute, so they started sacrificing one of their villagers every year. And everybody was okay with this until the dragon wanted the princess or whatever, right? And so this character comes and finds the dragon, kills him, and everybody's happy. And so this is also, I mean, we the prayer to Saint Michael, the defender, to protect us in battle. Like this is a motif that is, present in that story too. So I'm wondering, I mean, Saint Michael is Saint George, is Saint Theodore, like are these, because the historical basis for these characters, like the church is just taking the stories and changing the names, right? So like what can we really know what is true or not? Like I don't know. Derek is back. We were talking about Saint Michael, and it's Saint George's Day, Saint George's feast day. And I don't know if you hear me talk about the the villager and the dragon, the village and the dragon?
No, unfortunately, and I won't get into a bunch to bore all the listeners, but I had to step out for a moment. I am here in Mystical Where's the store, but no, I'm sorry, I didn't know that, so I didn't even know it was that day either. That's in because somebody actually mentioned to me, and maybe this ties in, Bill, but 4/22, so a couple days ago, something about the beginning of a galactic new year. Does that tie in at all?
I don't know about a galactic one, but I know there's a bunch of New Year's celebrations around this time of year just because it's spring. But the I was we were talking about angels because I was learning about Saint Joseph and his world and how angels spoke to him through dreams, right? And then we got on the topic of Saint Michael being an archangel, and then it being Saint George's feast day. And I was doing some research and found out that the story behind Saint George is actually the origin is from Saint Theodore, and the legend is that he killed a dragon to save a village from having to sacrifice their princess or the king's, daughter to this dragon. Everybody's cool with human sacrifice before then, but not the princess, right? So the saint came in and slayed the dragon, and that's where we get Saint George killing the dragon. But apparently it's supposed to be this huge. It was a huge celebration, like on par with Christmas back in hundreds of years ago, right? So I was just questioning whether, since everything, there's nothing new under the sun, right? Everything's a copy of a copy of a copy, it seems like. And so these three characters, Saint George, Saint Theodore, and Saint Michael, like, are these just the different spins on the same person? Because we have the Saint Michael prayer where he defends us in battle, and we have the story of him leading the armies of heaven and whatnot. I don't know if you had any thoughts on that. I know that we've talked about Michael before on private conversations.
Yeah, and I have odd, and I'm hesitating, but yeah, I mean, if I'm ever asked, I guess I just kind of got to put it out. So for yes, and I'll speak about it in an odd way, I guess, or different ways. I've spoken to or communicated with individuals that go by this, but in the greater view, when you and how you were just looking at it, it's a frequency or energy thing. So different individuals, again, I'm just gonna have to speak with the vague terms we have, hold enough of the same or like frequencies or energies as, to create a certain persona or ego, not ego as in, egotistical, ego personality wise. And these can be overlays of individuals. So others can reach certain states, and some of those states, they can call it Buddha in someone's. But again, it's a tough thing to talk about because you can reach, when I see Michael, it's a being, an entity, an angel, they go by lots of names, or I don't know, not titles, but references. I'm not trying to describe that. And it is usually a certain individual, and that one has certain healing characteristics and abilities where I'll communicate with another individual that some will say is St. George. And then that's a whole different entity with different, in memory, everything's energy to me. So you're talking about just this is one guy's perspective. I see it all energy and frequencies. So then I can see again, that's even tough to talk about. The attributes, I guess, the metaphysical attributes is another way of thinking about it, that these entities have, or what they're adept at. It's kind of like looking at a 6 individuals in high school that are playing track and field, and I say, well, that one's clearly good at discus because maybe they got some big old biceps or trappers or whatever, and that one's a good runner. I'm just trying to tie that odd analogy into what I'm talking about with different entities. So when you ask me, it's an energy thing, and I've seen other entities hold the same frequency in a good way as what some people call angels. So I don't know if that made complete or any sense whatsoever.
So they're tapping into this archetypal energy then, right?
They're attuning higher frequencies that let them be perceived and come across as, again, angel is a title. It's not and you're not born that way. It's like, I don't know, you encompass it. I don't say you earn it. Everybody has, long story short, big picture, we all have everything. We just have to realize it. And then depending on where you fall in that, let's make up a term here, realization scale, and you can say of densities. Well, in my head's really being affected right now. And that's what goes on with me too, is when I do that, it even talk about certain things, it affects me physically. And that was a real odd one, by the way. I can tell I'm being kind of messed with here. I don't, that doesn't necessarily mean in a bad way either. But yeah, so it's a state of being, you know, holding a certain space. So I don't know. That's the best I can probably get out on that.
Yeah, one of the best descriptions I heard about the different thrones of angels, the different choirs, right? Thrones is one of the types of choirs, the ranks, right? They have different ranks of angels, is that their job titles, like their job descriptions, their roles that entities people can fill. They're not necessarily entities unto themselves, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because you know, remember, okay, and also for listeners or everybody, I have no background in any religion whatsoever. I don't know anything about anything, to be honest. So I can have a blank slate there. So I literally just turn on the psychic, I'm gonna make fun of it, psychic button, start perceiving. And I'm not trained in that either. So I can't tell you the magic yoga pose. It just goes new. So then I come at it with blank slate. And then I get to perceive. And sometimes I see entities, and it's ranged the whole gambit from big old hairy Sasquatch that I didn't believe existed. That's all BS, blah, blah, blah. Started there, to angels, same thing. Sure, there's entities with this, that, and well, there are. And I come in not with some big old belief story on anything until after the fact, experiencing it, or, you know, having my own perception of it. So, but yeah, so it's entity, from my perspective, we're light entities or beings, and we can, again, it's a tough thing to talk. As we have more realizations, we can hold more frequencies, light, do more stuff, densities. But yeah, you can evolve energetically, I guess is one way of putting it. I hate even boxing myself into certain terms, because it's just tough to talk about, because if I say evolve, then, you know, that's going to mean this to one person or another, because really just 2 minutes ago I said we're all everything anyway, and that's how I've learned it, is had aha moments or realizations. Saw, like the remote viewing thing I think I've talked about before, is and then back in the military thing, well, it's not remote viewing. I realized, well, I can smell stuff. Well, then I didn't stop there. Then it's remote perceiving. I don't even just start dubbing things. I'm like, it's everything. And then you never know what it is. And you can do the same thing in any way. And that's what I'm saying. You can have the realizations and access your own abilities that people say gurus and masters have. I mean, it's not a limited thing.
Yeah, it does seem like there are some special, I don't know, abilities that pop up when you get to this level, I guess, because there's a story about Saint George appearing to a bunch of crusaders during one of the crusades, and they won this battle, and he just appeared out of nowhere, right? And there's also stories of Saint Germain appearing to the people who signed the Constitution, or the Declaration of Independence. Are you familiar with that story? In the locked room, they were all
no, I can tell you some of that though. Sometimes, and I can zoom in on that specific occurrence if we want, but sometimes entity, those that are helping will appear in the form that those they're showing themselves to want to be seen, things like that. So, and I think you know what I'm saying. And again, there's probably a better way of wording it. But yeah, that happened. I've seen that before. I've seen, I'll just use my terms to be blunt so I can go fast here. I've seen here in my office doing sessions. I call them spirit guides, pop in. When they hold a certain position, I dub them in my head as a spirit guide, just so you know, they're not like wearing a name badge, because it can be a passed on brother, sister, grandma, as that, but they'll look different to a different psychic or intuitive, or sometimes their loved one, because I've had the whole, again, just range of circumstances happen to where even the loved one in here who doesn't have whatever you can call psychic side or third eye, they see it all of a sudden, things, because I can hold such space in the room that stuff happens. So, but they'll look differently, and, you know, different ages. So kind of, it's odd, to be honest. Yeah, I don't know. I can't really explain it much more of that, because again, I have no training. I don't have a psychic manual. And I keep making fun of that term, but I wish I did. I mean, I saw psychics and I called BS and all that when I was younger too. I'm like, sure, you know stuff from nowhere. That was my mom too. She was. I'd make fun of her, not to her face, but I'd probably have something else to deal with then. But no, I mean, I'm like typical person when I grew up. I was calling BS and all, even into the military when they clearly knew who I was and what I was doing. That got clear later on, but even at that initial point, I had no idea. And then just went crazy from there. And I forget why we were talking the different.
I was pointing out that it seems like once you reach this level of angel or whatever, you have the ability to biolocate, and these people, right? Entities just
Oh,
appear.
you can do it now. I bilocate, you bilocate, we all do. And you can call that dreaming, you can call that remote perception. Yeah, I know it's always a play of words. But technically you're doing it all the time. All of us are, just so you know. When I remote view, and I've done it from here, there, and if there's another psychic, and I'm gonna go fast, another psychic in the pile of people that are in the room, and they're not all, an example, a recent one, I had to remote perceive into a spacecraft because somebody wanted to see if they were abducted. I go into there, I'm invisible to everybody but one little guy in there, and I see that they pick up on me because it was a little psychic ET, and I'm just gonna again make fun of it. But he did. He had his spider senses up, so he knew I popped in there. So it you can all do it already. It's just a play of words and how you describe it. And then you can always hone the ability, I guess you can say. Like your sensory levels. Like I didn't know the remote. There's a name for it, I'm sure, but Claire's I call it Claire Smelly. And again, I'm sure there's an official term, but never Googled that. I just figured it out one day driving home, and that I could do that. And all of a sudden I could smell the alcohol, even the brand and all of that the guy was drinking, not knowing that was even a thing. So, and that's really how I stumble on this stuff. So it's not like I'm so unhappy when people, oh, I'm impressed with you, Doug. I'm like, don't be impressed. I didn't do anything special. I just realized it was a thing and went at it. All these Claire. And again, I don't know the list of Claires either. I see that as a limiting thing. Go ahead, Ben.
Well, that's the thing, is it is a practice, right? It's just like anything else. The more you flex that muscle, the easier it gets. And it's very common to smell. And there is a term for it. You're right. I can't say it. But as that, when an energy shows up, that's one of the ways they will let someone who can perceive it or is aware of it, that yep, you're not just feeling it, it's there. It's like a confirmation, so to speak. And it can lead you into the right line of questioning, if you're communicating with it. So
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Oh yeah, I'm loves to have this whole I smell grandpa's cigarettes or cigar or pipe or whatever the heck. Yeah, I had all those when I was younger too, from nowhere. And they're not from nowhere. So yeah, lots of interesting experiences out there. I don't know if you asked anything else, Bill, or
There was a story about St. George appearing to a bunch of crusaders before a battle, and they won the battle, and that reminded me of Saint Germain appearing to the signers of I believe it's the Declaration of Independence. Do you know about this story, Derek?
no, I don't.
Okay. Uh, it was either Adam and I got to interview Dr. Bear Lando of Alpha Vedic, and he was filling us in on a lot of Saint Germain lore. And apparently, the signers of got to be the Declaration of Independence. Ben, do you know?
yeah, you're on the right track. That guy shows up throughout history all the time. It's amazing.
And
And it's not like a perceived energy. The dude walks into the room, right? And hundreds of years apart, and it's documented on notations and journals and things like that. And it is like Derek was saying, they show up how they show up. And it's, in my experience, if they're, as a spirit or energy is coming in to help in some way, they show up in a believable, perceivable way, so that you're not gonna, I mean, that if a biblically accurate angel shows up, right, and it's all whirling feathers and flaming and eyeballs and be not afraid, right, it's fucking weird. But so if it is this just a helpful energy coming in to assist in doing something great, they'll show up in a way that is not going to be at all odd, I guess.
So just to not startle you, I guess that makes sense. It reminds me of these old I don't know, medieval Renaissance paintings, like really classical pieces of art of the people like reading a book or whatever. And then they'll have this expression on their face, and they'll be looking over their shoulder, and there's like this angel in the air looking over them, and then they just have this really surprised look on their face, or kind of like spooked, not spooked, but startled, like this, what are you doing?
I'll say there's something more going on with that too, because I think it was Adam that was saying something earlier about the solar flares and stuff like that. And well, that's all energy and frequencies. And of course, our solar system is always, driving through the galaxy. We're always moving. We're not sitting in one spot. So stuff is changing, is what I'll say. And I know that was real technical, but what I'll tell you is here and it happened today as well in a session, I'm getting a whole lot more, and I don't think it's a me thing. I think it's an environmental thing. A lot more visuals. I can always turn on the psychic thing and see stuff and do that, but it's more of a third density visual. It's on our visual spectrum, so I don't have to go all psychic Derek and turn it on kind of thing. And it's different, is why I'm kind of even bringing this up. Because it is, and I'm getting other people are saying they're looking at the same little shiny thing I'm looking at. So what I'm saying is, because I can see who it is, I can see it's an entity behind, I can chat with that person. But here in 3D, they're coming through as literally a visual. And I know this has been happening forever to one degree or another, but it is ramping up, is why I'm bringing it up. A visual spark, like it was sitting over somebody's head. It was right above where you'd say the crown chakra was. And it was floating there for, I don't know, maybe 2 seconds. And that's a huge amount of time, by the way, for a little, what somebody would call an orb or a light to turn on, because usually it's like a blink of an eye. And then for a typical thing like that. But no, these are happening a whole lot more. There's more. And again, this may be throwing it to Adam here soon, and or Ben. A whole, I call it the merging of densities, and they're more accessible. And again, this is my big time layman's terms here, because it's easier to work now. It's even easier for me. It's not that all of a sudden my psychic muscles got really big. Yeah, and I agree with Ben 100%. Yeah, you do that stuff, it will enhance them. But I'm just, again, bringing it back to, that's not in this case what I'm talking about. It's becoming more tangible, and for those around me, and you don't have to just be standing next to me for it to happen. I think everybody here will have their own examples or have heard from somebody, but that's the thing. They're becoming more here stuff. I had a friend today, a whole agate something or other. Anyway, a rock manifest from nowhere, just in their sink appeared. I think it was yesterday or today. So stuff like that, and that happens to me too. But when it happens to people that it maybe doesn't happen as often to, well, then that's something. Is that, you got something there as far as? Go ahead.
Speaking of stuff just manifesting and appearing, this is a tiny little chunk of titanium quartz that my wife dug out of the front yard last year. And Derek, titanium quartz has to be treated, right? Like
it does.
You don't find this in nature.
Oh no, that has to be treated somehow.
And it's not, I mean, it's super tiny. It's not really in the best shape, but either, someone had to drop it there a long time ago, like 10 years ago, and it's just now coming to the surface, or I don't know. I think it just appeared there for some reason. I don't know. Do you get anything off of that, Derek?
Well, let me lower this down now, because I don't even know if that's been around long enough. That's what I was trying to find here too, is, okay, hold that up again. Let me look at that. Oh, okay. That was interesting. I didn't even get to, and not that I need to visually see it, but I'll tell you what, as you move that up, both my ears, I don't know, pressure. So like you feel like you have to do the Valsalva maneuver. Yeah, I saw that enough there. Let me look at it and see. I'll tell you it was dropped, because that's for sure. I'm trying to see if it was intentional. What I was trying to say, there's like a little like zapped, and you hold things up like that. It happens to everybody again, to one degree or another. And I always pick up on this. Is why I'm slowing down to give you behind the scenes babble like I do. It was directional, which doesn't make sense to me, because my monitor's in front of me. So why the heck would that be a directional thing? Let's get some scientists to figure it out. It pressured my ears forward back. And remember, I'm a retired commercial deep sea diver. and yes, scuba diver for who knows how many decades. So I've been underwater a couple thousand times. It doesn't work that way. Your ears don't kind of go pressure layer by layer. That's not a thing. And most of you, or probably everybody's been on planes, so you get the gist of the whole blowing your ears or popping your ears kind of thing. So it's all happens at once. But that crystal just did that to me, Bill, is why I'm kind of honing in on this. And that was unusual that it did that. I'm looking to see it dropped.
It's
looking
kind
to
of
see
beat up. It's pitted
what's
a little bit. It just kind of
all I'm seeing, I'm not getting any big message from it, to be honest. What I see is a younger, I don't know, a 20-year-old male intent walking by, looking down, like tossing it. That's all I got. Nothing else. So not a real exciting reading. But that is whatever, because I don't add on anything because I'm a blunt guy too. I'll tell you. And if there's E.T. Bob flew by and gave it to you as your upgrade, you need to put it on your third eye. I'd get in all kinds of crazy babble. Because a lot of that crazy stuff's real, and I'm again making fun of all this. But that's what came in, and then also I'll tell you, I asked to only be shown interact with what's good for the person then, and usually I'm bringing it back to a session now. So I'll tell the guides or the higher self, as I'll term it, and others do, I only want to know what's best for this person now. It's not that I get access to everything. And some people think that. Some people are actually scared to walk up to me in the store here because they think I'm like psychically reading all those secrets and stuff. Like, I don't have time for that. If you knew what was going on in this head, you'd know there was no space. I'm going 100 miles an hour and I'm barely catching on the fraction of what I'm thinking about. I'm not reading you. Unless I need to, then I am alerted. That is a thing, by the way. But on that, no, younger. I keep wanting to say younger guy, so I don't know what to say about that. Yeah, he looked down, tossed it there. That's all I got. Do you have neighbors? That you're in the woods or something, aren't you?
yeah, our neighbors are pretty far away. Not like
Maybe the
horribly
previous
far.
homeowners intentionally put it there as like a crystal grid thing, but it wasn't dropped. It was he's looking down, throwing it a couple feet from him. So I'm not talking about like out on the street or something. So it was like placed.
Yeah, it was right. We have a brick walkway that goes up to our front
Okay.
door, and there's like a little iris patch.
It's not more than 3 feet from where he threw it. So it's, yeah, I don't know why. So I don't want to bore everybody on the show and try and chat with the guy, but that's what happened. It looked like an intentional thing. So, most people throw grids for crystal grids, this, that, and the other. I don't use aura quartz. We have some, but I don't use it for stuff. It's it's modified. They add on to the frequency. Pretty, I guess, if you like the shiny stuff.
Right. This looks like a rainbow.
Yeah, but I don't use it for anything myself, or opalite or the fake fluorite that's everywhere nowadays.
Well, and my guides have had me chuck a few crystals here and there, more than a few.
Sure.
I've always got something in my pocket to give away, and I don't need to know why, So it was something along those lines. It was meant for Ellie to find when she found it.
Yeah, there's no, and I've done thousands of, oh my gosh, more than that, pieces of shungite. Oh, feel the need. Oh, there it goes out the car window. Who knows?
I've heard of people making these holy hand grenades and throwing them near cell towers to clean up the frequencies. Is that you know what I'm talking about, Derek?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. That's what we make them. I've got one actually right here behind me, literally called that HHD stamped on it. It's an orgone device. You can make them. I've made them for years too. In a copper pipe is one way of doing it, by the way. Yes, you can make orgone devices, but those will melt. They'll get hot. They'll do all kinds of stuff. But if you get a copper pipe and just plug up one end, do your layers in there. I'm not going to tell anybody how to make a, let's say, 7-layer cake. Do what you're led to do. And that's the orgone device, orgonite, in there, and then plug up the other end. Yeah, unfortunately, it kind of looks like a pipe, B-O-M-B. I don't want to get his flag. So it's not, it's a love device, everyone listening. But yeah, so they're interested in that way. If it's in the copper, of course, copper moves orgone energy really well. But yeah, bury them if you're going to do them, everyone, because if you leave those laying around, there's going to be phone calls happening to bomb squads and stuff like that. So if you've used the copper, yeah, I've heard so many stories. It's crazy. So yeah, but they
throw
were
it out your window. You got to put
no, because I mean, seriously, straight up looks like a, that's what I was saying. And I don't know what flags us nowadays. That's why I'm joking, but not joking on what I'm saying here, because But yeah, but no, they're legit things. And I have ones probably a foot long in here. There's lots of crystals. I put them in staffs, so straight up you can hollow out get a piece of driftwood, which is everywhere where I'm at. Actually, it floats over from Russia, so you get a cedar branch, hollow out the middle, start loading that thing up with. I have crushed crystals, quartz, shungite powder, nuggets, all kinds of trinkets and stuff, depending on what your plan is with that tool.
Yeah.
Tool.
It's really easy to get creative, and with you're setting the right intention off the bat to do stuff like that. I've put shungite and clear quartz into balls of compost with wildflower seeds and chuck those out the window too. So get creative with it, and that's you're moving forward with that co-creation with the universe, and it makes an even bigger wave of love frequencies, if you will, when it's artful.
Yeah, I haven't seen anybody do that's a good idea. I haven't seen anybody do it yet, but adding things like medicinal shrooms or psilocybin ones, all of that in an orgone device, because these are devices hold. Oh yeah, and that's a frequency, of course. And that's something that's can be done. I mean, there's so much stuff you can do with that. Yeah, there's just energy tools, and you can make a Swiss Army knife. I make a reprogrammable one where you can have there's a little opening. You could roll up on a piece of paper, right? Grandma's name, and she's got a tummy ache, and send her love. Or let's say Fluffy, your cat, the next day has an issue. So what I'm saying is, I don't care what you write on your little sticky note piece of paper that you put in that device, it adds that frequency to it. And I do that with my scalar units at home. Just writing the names of people. In my case, I print them out, but yeah, you can write love on your glass of water. It's homeopathy. You all know that. Probably to the painful degree. But yeah, it's how you can add the frequency to it. So even in orgone devices, I don't know if we have any online available anymore, but I did have them. But you can make them and add parts to them. They're reprogrammable.
Yeah, sigils are a thing. So, the symbols that we write on things can transfer.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I got lots of studies on that I'll be posting here soon on mysticalwars.com website under the Shungite FAQ page. But these same studies and I literally have 50 of them. I'm going to upload them all to my own server because they keep disappearing online. I think I've talked about this before, but now I've got them myself and printouts. So talking about this, where literally the science has been done. I don't care if it's a steak or, a cup of water. Either way, there's water molecules and everything, and they're all programmable. So what's in there will be aligned with you energetically, and you get more nutrients out of it. You'll get more the water. You won't pass 90% of it and keep 10%, which is what most people get when they drink tap water. Those numbers will reverse, and that's all science. Anyway, where were we going, Bill?
Well, you mentioned that you get your driftwood from Russia, and I was actually going to tie that back into the St. George, St. Michael, St. Theodore thing, because on the Russian, like their little coat of arms, right, is a person on a horse slaying a dragon, kind of like St. George. But which brings me back to the whole St. George and St. George's feast day and in Russia, having that on their coat of their arms. Like that's, I don't know, Derek, you spent time in the military. Did you learn about any other military traditions or do you know anything about why specifically that emblem is on the coat of arms for Russia?
I know absolutely nothing about that. No, wish I was more help.
The slaying, I don't know, just the whole slaying the dragon archetype or theme is intriguing to me. But back to programmable and unprogrammable stones. Last episode, you pointed out that shungite is not a crystal and it's not programmable. Am I getting that right?
Sorry, I was struggling with my mute button there. Oh yeah, no, it's carbon is what it is. It's carbon based. So it's not. I mean, if there's always a percentage of everything in anything. So I mean, it's always you got to have a little leeway there. But no, it's not a programmable as we usually speak about it, like crystals are, or water, or salt, or ourselves, or the air around us, with the little crystalline structures we call water. that are programmable. That's what makes certain things programmable. Most of the time, that's not if we're talking physical, but there's energy fields. So like people's attachments, they're not attached to the water molecules around the body. No, it's an energy thing. So again, now, but you're talking minerals. So no, shungite's not.
So it doesn't hold memory then, like because water is programmable, it holds memory, right? Like shungite doesn't hold memory in the same way.
No, it holds its base frequencies continual, so just like many other ones do. Now it can be modified, like we've talked before. I tumble it with silver and then it changes it, but no, you're not going to hold a piece of shungite. I'm going to program you for this, that, and the other. Shungite moves energy. It doesn't really like snapshot it or freeze frame it or program it, like we're talking about. So you'd want to have a crystal in one hand, a piece of shungite in the other, is what I would do if you're doing it that way. And it always it depends on what somebody's describing, what they're doing. But if you're literally trying to have a trinket in the physical density holding certain frequencies, and that can be metaphysical ones, well then yeah, you want to have a crystalline structure of some kind, and then shungite just gets the whole environment moving, so then you can tune the frequencies better. The shungite is your aluminum foil on your rabbit. I'm an old guy. On your rabbit ear antennas on your TV, if you go way back when, it's just opening up to all its frequencies. So, and then you use your own intention, you can call it imagination and emotions, to then choose the frequency. So get excited or I want to be more psychic. Well, then guess what frequency that little crystal is going to hold until a bigger energy comes around it, or you earth it or ground it out. There's a million ways to do that. I'm sure Ben has lots of input on that too. I know he does all kinds of things. And that whole talking about the driftwood, yeah, that is everywhere. And I even eat some cedar seeds. We drink cedar oil at times too, all from Russia, and there's lots of reasons for that. That goes into the whole ringing cedars. That's a whole book series. But anyways, Anastasia, people can Google those terms and they'll see what book series I'm talking about. But there's a whole thing with the cedar trees and using it in energy tools. And this is a cedar forest right here I live in. This is the same lines as the Russia forest, Cascade Mountains.
I used cedar planks to build my bed frame for that buckwheat mattress.
That's a great idea. And that's what this Mystical Wares has, is cedar ceilings. I didn't do it just by, air quotes here, by chance, synchronistically. I'm in a big Faraday cage building with cinder block walls, which is stopping all the Wi-Fi and the harmful BS out there, most of it. And then cedar ceilings, which also stops a lot of it. So, but no, there's a whole energy tied to cedar as well, that again, somebody can probably explain better than me, but it's a great energy tool.
Oh man, okay, so they used cedar to build the temple in Jerusalem. This is part of the Freemasonic.
That's not random. Nothing's random. So realize, okay, I'll give you a little bit of more. All trees do this to one degree or another. So wood's programmable too. I know people don't often think about that, but it is. So as a cedar tree grows, and they like to put in some of these books, the 500-year mark, and don't quote anything on this. It has been growing or existed, and we work this way too, in so many frequencies for so long that it basically is downloaded that. So I'll just put it this way. We're all learning songs throughout the generations or decades. So, and those accumulate over time. So if you can get a sacred cedar tree, an old one that is so many hundreds of years old, it's said that it can hold such frequencies. And in the right hands, yes, I'll agree with that. Not that you just walk up, grab, ooh, there's your magic cedar tree. I'm a wizard now. All right. But it is a tool, because that's, again, grabbing a Swiss Army knife to a 2-year-old and saying, give me the toothpick. They're not gonna know what they're even doing. Of course, don't give knives to kids. I'm just saying, I never should qualify here, but it's the most awareness level. So somebody like Ben, you give him a piece of cedar, that's not just a stick. He can turn that sucker into a straight up magic wand. He can turn it, and we'll have fun with the words, an energy device, but that's what they were called back then, were wands. And then if you get more understanding, you start wrapping the layers, the organic and metals. That's the organite. Then you get in all that, and you can go from the inside. But yeah, cedar's a fantastic tool, inside and out, by the way. So cedar oil too, you can put on your skin.
Ben, did you have anything?
Yes. I was gonna say cedar is a great energy conductor. I don't know. It's a funny play on words with a wand, but it's more for me anyway, it's more interacting with the tree spirit. And if you find a branch, there is that echo of that entity or that intelligence within it, and tapping into, cedar's always been sacred. Like you said, they built a temple in Jerusalem. That family of trees, the juniper, that its fruit has been used for medicinally and other things forever, and it is closely related to Jupiter as well. So there's a lot of, and it seems it's cross-cultural, right? There's a lot of burning of cedar where Derek is with the native population there. And you go to Scandinavia, there's a reason saunas are traditionally made out of cedar. It's a very healing energy, I find. And mixing it with the metals, like Derek was saying, you wrap some copper around a cedar branch, and I think almost anybody can feel that. It's like dowsing. You can feel the energy coming into it.
Yeah, I have yet to make my electroculture antennas, but yeah, wrapping copper around. I don't have I have some extra cedar planks, but I have these 4x4 posts I think would work better. But I'm going to do that, I promise, and I will report back to see if I can tell you guys about any, I don't know.
Yeah, that's funny. I'd forgotten you mentioned you were planning on doing that. And yeah, a little cosmic reminder there, I guess.
Right? I'm excited for I just gotta I don't know. I'm thinking it's kind of I haven't looked up how much it is to buy copper wire. I imagine that it's kind of expensive, but
Not really. Yeah. You don't need much, I guess, and it's not expensive. You can get, just go to any hardware store, and um a roll of bare wires, $8 or $10 maybe.
so why were a few years ago there were a bunch of people like stealing copper
Well,
pipes
yeah,
on them. Is it
I mean, by the pound, I don't know what, I mean,
is it that? I mean, if it's not that
it's
expensive,
also desperate people who really needed money at the time.
true.
It's hard work.
The gauge copper is much different that they're stealing. So if they're going out there to these different power boxes and transformers, or I don't care what it is, the gauge copper is a whole lot thicker. So, the copper, the Ben and I are talking about going to get is relatively cheap, but when you get the stuff they're talking about, no,
Yeah, and they're stealing, thousands of feet at a time.
Yeah, I make dowsing rods out of, I don't even know what gauge copper it is, 16 or something or other. And that can add up kind of quickly, but wire that, just electrical wire that you're talking about running, that's not gonna be that pricey.
Okay, cool. Well, I will do my best to have that prepared for next show because I'm coming up on a payday. So that does bring us to the top of the hour, though, and I do know that Derek has to bounce out a little bit early, so we're going to jump into the inspirational segment, the third segment of the show. There are three segments to the show. I don't know if our listeners or anybody that's just new is just joining us or hasn't caught on, but I'm trying to break this into gratitudes, new business, and then the inspirational third segment of the show. And this is Adam helped me not formulate, but he emphasized that if when I'm designing a new podcast or a new show or whatever, that to make sure that we have specific segments that people can count on and look forward to because it brings structure to the show and predictability and continuity. So thank you, Adam, for coaching me along on this adventure.
Dude, I'm here with you. I love it.
But yeah, we're going to talk about doing your best today. This is the fourth agreement in Don Miguel Ruiz's four agreements, and it's super short. So this won't take too much time, Derek. I know you have to leave, but I just have a few points written down, and then a small excerpt about an Indian custom named Puja, Puja. Probably not saying that right, but I'll read from the book, and he'll explain it better than me. But yeah, it is speaking of explaining, doing your best, it seems kind of self-explanatory, right? So what exactly happens like when you do your best? Why should we do our best? What is the advantage for us doing our best? Well, if you do your best, there is no way that you can judge yourself. And if you don't judge, there's no way that you're going to suffer from guilt, blame, and self-punishment. This way we don't have any regrets when we do our best. And this sets us free, right? This is kind of breaking a spell, so to speak. Uh, Don says that actually that it breaks a spell over you. So just doing your best can break a spell, guys. And then what does doing your best, what does that mean? It means that you live your life more intensely. And this is from the book, but I added with more intention, right? Because one of the masteries they speak about is the mastery of intent, the mastery of love, right? So, and so doing your best means that you live your life more intensely. It is the action that is going to make you feel intensely happy. When you always do your best, you take action. Doing your best is taking action because you love it, not because you're expecting a reward. So that's the other thing that I kind of wanted to highlight is that you're not really thinking about thinking about the reward. So that this breaks a spell on us, right? It prevents us from judging ourselves and from feeling guilt and blame, self-punishment. And when we do our best, we're thinking about the action, right? You're not thinking about the outcome because you're fully involved in what you're doing. You're being, intent. And Don goes on to say that most people do the opposite, right? They only act when they expect a reward. And that's why they don't enjoy the action they're doing, which is why they don't do their best, right? And an interesting note on rewards. I don't have any example off the top of my head, but the rewards will come. And sometimes when you're not attached to the reward, you even get more than what you would have been expecting to begin with, right? So it just turns out better than expected. Kind of like that vaudeville timeline that I've referred to back when Owen was with us about on reality transurfing. And I did want to do a whole episode just for this agreement specifically because without this agreement, the other three don't work. So I thought that it was kind of important that we do an episode and emphasize about doing your best, right? And he does explain a little bit about this an Indian ritual called puja in here. And so I'll just read real quickly. In India, they perform a ritual called puja, Puja. Probably not saying that right again. But in this ritual, they take idols that represent God in many different forms and bathe them, feed them, and give them their love. They even chant mantras to them. The idol itself is not important. What is important is the way they perform the ritual, the way they say, I love you, God. God is life. God is life in action. The best way to say, I love you, God, is to live your life doing your best. The best way to say, thank you, God, is by letting go of the past and living in the present, right here and now. And then a few pages later, he talks about that same ritual in respect to our body and taking care of ourselves and our health. That's what he concluded what I took away from it. But uh, if you do your best in the search for personal freedom, in the search for self-love, you will discover that it's just a matter of time before you find what you are looking for. It's not about daydreaming or sitting for hours dreaming in meditation. You have to stand up and be a human. You have to honor the man or woman that you are. Respect your body. Enjoy your body. Love your body. Feed, clean, and heal your body. Exercise and do what makes your body feel good. This is a puja to your body, and that is a communication, a communion between you and God. So the end point here is that every action then becomes a ritual in which we are honoring God. So that's pretty much all I have written down here. The four agreements, he says that they're a summary of the mastery of transformation, which we touched on last episode. The other two masteries are intent and awareness. And then he stops talking about the fourth agreement towards the last bit of the chapter, and he ends with the goal of a warrior, and this ties right into the goal for this podcast, is to transcend this world and to escape from this hell. His words, not mine, and never come back. The reward is to transcend the human experience of suffering to become the embodiment of God. So that is the warrior's disposition, at least from a Toltec perspective, which is kind of pretty similar along the lines of what I laid out for as far as time traveling and descent or transcending above time and out of this world, right? So what do you guys think about those two little pieces connecting there?
I was going to say, I can summarize part of that. And for me was, basically do your best or try your best with no expectations, and, and you may be surprised. So, no, that was really interesting.
It does kind of tie back to Stoicism too, in that when we put out these projects, right, we're not thinking about what other people, how they're going to be received by other people. We're doing them because we're doing it because it makes, for us, right, because this is our expression, and we're not worried about being criticized and whatnot, or kind of like not worried about getting a reward, right?
Yeah, and what are you making? You are a culmination of your emotions, and you're making this emotion that can be felt no other way unless, the goal is the thing itself.
I find it interesting too that he phrases it as taking action, right? And I've meditated on this agreement quite a lot. Because I thought I had always tried to do done my best. But I find if you take a pause and look at it for a minute more and say, can I do it better? That propels you into, making sure you're doing your best.
So after you've completed the action, you would pause, or before you start?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously taking action to start whatever it is that you're going to do your best on, right? But the pause comes not just as reflection, but within. I work with my hands a lot, so I'm a carpenter and building things. So you can, within the action, pause, look at it again, and then keep going. It's taking a pull on the oars. You're still in flow. You're just going to slow down for a second. Can I do it better? And go forward from there.
Right? That's kind of like keeping in mind the mastery of intent or awareness, right? Being aware of, are you always doing your best, right? And I love that you brought up that you're a carpenter, because Joseph was a carpenter as well. And I learned that the carpenter, the name or the word, the Greek word that they used, was more of like a workman. It didn't mean carpenter per se. So, because it is this somebody skilled with their hands, right? And this goes into learning a trade, and apparently trades and passing them on generationally is a Jewish thing. Is very, the value on work was not placed like it was in that culture and as it was in other cultures. Like for instance, the Greeks, they even Socrates or Plato, it's referenced in this book. I should have looked it up, but maybe we'll next time. The value placed on labor was not as highly held in high as esteem as it was among the Jewish people, which I found very interesting. The Greeks wanted, a very split system. Like men or people of leisure would do the politicking and all the fancy frou-frou stuff, and then the common person would be the laborer, right? Which it's not very egalitarian. Am I am I wrong about that? Isn't that no meritocracy there? More of like a caste system. But yeah, it also reminded me of he was also able to travel from place to place, kind of like a Freemason would to find work. He would travel for work and stay overnight and knew the roads and was well traveled and all that stuff. It was really an interesting book. But going back to doing your best, um, it's a super important topic that I wanted to stress, give it its own episode, and this is something that I try to remind myself, not in this particular way every morning, but I get up in the morning and try to remind myself that this is going to be the best day ever. Speaking of doing your best. So just trying to keep that mindset from the get-go. And sometimes, if your best is only 70% of what you're 100% capable of, right? Then, that's your best for the day. And sometimes, that's all right. And it's okay to be okay with that because, there's always tomorrow, hopefully.
Well, and I don't, can you do your best if you're not, mindful of how you're taking care of your body and if you're getting enough rest and things like that? Stress generally disrupts that flow and will cause a varied outcome. And if you're going after something to, do your best and master it, then I think taking taking time to make sure that you're able to operate at your best level. So it's a little counterintuitive, but I'm a big fan of naps.
Oh yeah. It's a great way to that's one of Neville Goddard. Neville doesn't say to nap to meditate, but he says go into a trance-like state akin to sleep, right? So almost napping. But exactly, you're right about the whole what, you can't do your best if you're not physically feeling 100% your best, and that ties right back into what Don Miguel was saying about the ritual of taking care of your body as a communion with God and as an expression of love. So doing things like getting enough sleep, or not drinking soda, or taking the stairs or whatever, just being mindful, being consciously aware of what we're putting in our bodies, what we're putting, not just physically even, but mentally, like what are we allowing to or entertain us, like enter our brain and hold our attention. So yeah, that's a great point, and it ties right back into the Indian ritual of taking care of idols. And if you make your body an idol, that's good for your health, right? But with that said, guys, I don't really have anything else planned for this evening. Do you think that we should cover the last three agreements in one episode moving forward, or should we take one agreement per episode and stretch it out and kind of really make this a meditation?
I wouldn't even say stretching it out, but I think that there's a lot in there. Yeah, there's no need to do it all at once in my mind. But that's just me.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah, giving each one their due. That sounds
Yeah.
like a fun meditation or conversation for sure.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. So that is what we'll plan on for the next three episodes. I do hear that there's a fifth agreement out there, so maybe we'll stretch this out into four episodes. But yeah, just to give the listeners a little heads up of what to expect for the third segment in the future. And just to touch on the fifth agreement quickly, I was looking for artwork because I want to get a poster of these and hang it up somewhere where I can see it and keep this in my mind. But the fifth agreement was interesting because it said something along the lines of to be skeptical but learn to listen, which spoke to me because when Adam and I were doing 13 questions and I went through the interview and was asked the questions, right, got to sit in the hot seat. One of the answers I gave had to do with not having cognitive dissonance when approached with new information about a subject that you maybe feel like you know a lot about, right? So that fifth agreement speaks, directly to that. So I thought that was a cool addition, and it kind of reminded me of the 10th, what is it? The Celestine prophecy, the 10th insight. I guess there's a part two as far as the Celestine prophecies go, which is something else I want to get into on this show. Maybe we'll do that after the four agreements. But Ben was the one that introduced me to the Celestine prophecies. I actually finished reading the book not too long ago. But Ben, do you know anything about the 10th insight?
Yeah, it's a, I don't know, not a sequel, but a compendium for sure. It just goes into sort of encapsulating all of them a little deeper, as I recall. It's been a couple years since I reread those. Um, I read it for the first time in high school, which at this point seems like a parallel universe. But the found them again a couple years ago, at my mom's house, and she had read it after I left it at the house, when I moved off and started adventuring around. And when I came home, the 10th insight was there and a like companion workbook,
Oh,
which I found pretty interesting to leaf through too. Um, so yeah, the author's name is escaping me at the moment, but
James.
he's done a lot more work since the first book, and that like 94, 95 when that came out. So
Yeah, I think it's James Redfield. Redfield.
yeah. Thank you.
All right. Well, yeah. So we'll get into that. I'm not going to reread but I would do want to read the second one, the 10th insights. But we'll definitely go through the first nine, and before that, though, we'll finish off the last three agreements, possibly the fifth agreement from Don Miguel Ruiz. And aside from that, we are doing this live. I will release this podcast we'll release this as a podcast on Tuesday evening. So look out for that if you're not catching this live, but you can listen and chat with us live every Monday at chrononautchronicles.com. And any parting words before we sign off from any of the other Prime Krononauts?
No, I
Just
just
appreciate the space. Yeah, thanks.
that's exactly what I was going to say. I
Well
appreciate it.
said.
Thank you. Great time.
Right on. Well, thank you all for showing up, listeners and Chrononaut Primes. And until next time, everybody, Carpe Diem.